hello, and good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to you. My name is Makeeya, the Phantom Broadcaster. Thank you once again for joining me for this episode of We Don't Know What It Is. That's it. We don't know what this episode will be. Not even I do. I have a one sentence, a one liner of what I hope to talk about for this episode, and let's hope we can stick to that one thing. But before we get to any of that, I'd like to say hello once again and welcome to the Midnight Radio. All right, all right. Hello. Mic test. Is this thing on? Yes. Hello once again. My name is Makia, your Phantom Broadcaster, the Phantom Broadcaster of the Midnight Radio, and tonight is just gonna be talking about one thing. One thing which I've been thinking about for more than a couple of times. Yesterday, I was talking to someone about it. I was talking to Lucanis Morphy about it, and it's just trying to build new habits, especially in a terrain where I'm not that good at or I'm not that very much familiar with. So, I talked about this in the previous episode. I wanted to be a bit more consistent about the things I do as Makia, the things I do for the Midnight Radio, and one of it is just simply letting be and hitting the record button and seeing where the thing takes us, and hope that in one way or another you guys would be sticking around and you know um finding solace in these yaps, or like I don't know. Again, you can be working, you can be studying, you can be doing whatever, cleaning your room, cleaning the backyard, cleaning your living room, whatever, taking your pets out on a walk, playing with your cats. I don't know, right? And somehow, if you need some sort of like a friend that's just yapping in the background, hopefully you guys would have me. So back to the thing, back to the thing I wanted to talk about, which is honestly two things. Okay, before we go back to the thing, two things. One thing is having no flow or having no proper whatever would help me record things faster and more efficiently. Honestly, I think, but at the same time, I feel like I would go on different tangents. So I hope you guys would bear with me for with that and would forgive me for that. But anyway, back to it. So that one thing that's been keeping me awake or like been bugging my mind over the past I don't know how long is how do we actually unlearn things? I am no expert. I am no psychologist. I am no whatever. I have no form of relevant experience in the field of such things, but like honestly, if you guys are free to share, you guys are definitely free to share your own unlearning habits. If there's a learning habit, like how do we learn a new habit? How do we unlearn habits? Honestly, like it's a thought that I've been thinking about because the only thing that's um the only what method that I have in terms of unlearning things is trying my best to catch myself when I'm in that thing that I want to unlearn. So, what do I mean by that? When I'm stuck in this, when I feel that I am in the process, okay, so let's put it, here I go again. Let's put it in a specific situation, okay? So, in the previous episode, I did talk about wanting to be a little more present for the Midnight Radio and really letting go of being a total perfectionist about it all, right? Like planning a full episode guide, planning a full production and whatnot. So I had that in mind. And then when I was thinking about doing this episode, I was like, oh, wait, maybe I really need some talking points. Maybe I really need to do this, blah, 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 blah. But then I caught myself and I was like, yo, no, that's not how we're going to be doing it this time around, right? Makia, this is not how we do it this time around. We are going to be a bit more transparent. We are going to be a bit more real. We are going to show up the same way we show up to our streams or something like that. So that's kind of like the most of an unlearning habit that I have. And honestly, I'm not even sure if that works. There are many things I kind of want to unlearn, and these are like mindsets, mentalities, practices that I have for myself that might not serve me in this new journey that I'm trying to do. So yeah, I'm at that stage, and how exactly do we unlearn things? I'm trying to think of like my own, other than the one I just shared just now. I'm trying to think of another thing. I'm trying to think of other ways that I actively try to unlearn behaviors or mentalities or whatever, other than just actively catching myself. Because I don't think that's sustainable. You know, I don't think we can consistently be self aware to actually catch ourselves when we're trying to think, when we're trying no when we're in that space of the thing that we want to unlearn about. So all I know is it's not going to be easy, right? It's definitely not going to be easy, because if the fact that we're trying to unlearn them means that it's something that's already engraved in our system in one way or another. If we're used to cramming himself a him, then preparing ahead of time is something that seems impossible for me, right? Or if I'm used to doing things in step 1, 2, 3, doing it step 2, 3, 1 wouldn't make sense to me. But is step 1, 2, 3 better than 2, 3, 1, or is step 1, 2, 3 the right way and 2, 3, 1 the wrong way? Not necessarily. So honestly, I don't know what I'm getting at this point. I'm just trying to figure out how to crawl back out of this hole I've dug just now. Topic of a hole of a topic that I've um just dug just now. So I'm trying to get out of it by yapping my way out of it. But honestly, it's just more of talking to myself. Again, I wanted the midnight radio to be as raw as our midnight thoughts. So you guys now have a bit of a glimpse of what my midnight thoughts are like. It's this clutter of words, of thoughts, of whatever. But in any case, um trying to unlearn things. Yeah, that's my okay. If I'm gonna share with you guys what that one liner guide that I have, it's how does one unlearn things? Literally, that's about it. I want to talk about how do we actually unlearn things and figure out, hopefully, have this space where we can just share how we try to do just that. And I guess okay, probably we can start about like why do we want to unlearn certain things? Probably it's no longer serving our purpose. Probably it's no longer something that we want to carry over towards our next journey. So in my case, I wanted to be a bit more present. As I mentioned, I wanted the midnight radio to really be existing, and past me wanted it to be absolutely, produced properly. And in that way, it stopped me from making it exist. So I wanted to unlearn that and be just me and talk to you guys, not in the same way as I would in those, first few episodes, first few runs of the show. And in that way, I'm hoping to make it exist. And it's working. It's working. It's just that I really don't know how to keep it going, how to keep an episode like this going without having something to like guide me better. But yeah, so there are some things that no longer serve us, so we want to unlearn them. And probably by unlearning it, we make space to learn about new things. So right now, I'm making space to um not really learn, but more of accept this new method of just letting be, just letting be. Excuse me, just winging it, and hoping for the best. So I guess one more way of unlearning things is to actively know why that thing no longer serves you, right? So if you're trying to unlearn certain mentalities, so say for example, I want to stop cramming. So let's take it from there. What is anchoring us what is anchoring that want? Why do we want to unlearn this specific thing? So say for example, when it comes to cramming, I want to stop cramming so that I can, probably prepare better, or do something in the better way and, prevent myself from panicking and whatever, right? So I think that's also one effective way of trying to figure things out is sometimes I would say that most of the time we don't know exactly what we want, but we know what we don't want. So how can we work around that? How can we prevent ourselves from getting or like encountering or whatever, right? Or of ending up doing the things that we don't want. Even if we don't know what we want, how do we stop ourselves from getting to a point of the things that we don't want? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So, in the example of doing the midnight radio, what I don't want is for the midnight radio to just not exist, to not be out there, to not continue this podcast slash whatever the heck this is. And I'm trying to do. I know that I don't want that, right? So I want it to exist, but at the same time, I initially wanted it to be a big and whatever and like produced and this and that. But what weighs more is that I don't want it to just be nothing. I don't want it to just be a part of the intro of like, hey, what's up? My name's Makeeya, the random broadcaster of the Midnight Radio, which is nice and all, but like, what is the Midnight Radio? So I still want to bring it to existence, and I don't want it to just disappear just like that. So by knowing how do I say this? By knowing why I want to unlearn certain things helps me unlearn the thing. Does that make sense? Like, I know that I don't want this, so that's why I have to unlearn it. And how do I unlearn it is that's the next step. What I'm unlearning is it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be too grand. It doesn't have to be too amazing, too fully produced as if a whole production team is behind this. It's not. It's just me. So I want to unlearn that perfectionist side of me, especially with the things that I want to do, right? I guess a part of me is also heavily wired from working for more than a decade at this point, working for like big stuff. And when you work for big stuff, you want things to not screw up, right? You want things to be this, to be that. You can't screw up. You can't make mistakes, or at least as little of mistakes as possible. So I'm kind of like wired that way. So right now, it's like, how do I unlearn that and just accept that sometimes letting it be, it might be just the way to go. It might not be also, right? It might not be. But right now, I know that wanting to be perfect is also not the way to go. So, is being carefree as this, the way to go? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Probably not. But all I know is being too perfectionist about it is definitely not the way to go. So, number one, unlearn things. Try to catch yourself if you're within that behavioral patterns or mindsets which you want to unlearn. Try your best to catch yourselves and be like, oh, hold on. Why am I thinking like this? Why am I being like this again? Didn't we promise ourselves that we will unlearn this? I'm not sure if it's going to be like the same concept of, when they say that when you're trying to learn a habit, it's like a 21-day thing. It takes 21 days to build a habit. So every single day for those 21 days, try to do the thing that you wanna the new habit that you're trying to form. Try to do it every single day for 21 days, and then it's gonna form somehow, right? I do not have that same discipline. I'm so sorry. Like, I admit, I try to form habits following that method. It's just not it for me. So I'm not sure if it's that's gonna be the same concept when we're trying to unlearn things, right? Do we take 21 days of trying to unlearn things? I don't know. I did not do any form of prior research or whatever before hitting the record button and just yapping my way out of this. But in any case, that's number one, at least to me. As I try to catch myself, try to catch yourself when you're within that behavioral patterns or mindsets or thought process thought patterns where you're just like, yeah, no, this is exactly what I'm trying to avoid. This is exactly what I don't want to happen. So, wait a minute, maybe I should pivot myself away from this. Okay, probably we might have instances where we don't exactly know where to pivot towards, pivot to, or like which other mindset or pattern we should revert to, right? Probably we don't have that just yet. But I guess just with the simple act of taking yourself out of that mindset or that headspace of that thing that you want to unlearn is already a step in and of itself. Once you catch yourself being like, oh, I'm cramming again. Oh, I'm lazing around again. I'm, stuck in bed rot mode again. So I should just get up. Okay, find the energy to get up because I already know that I'm stuck in this mode and this is not the mode that I want to be in. So I have to get up. I guess just having that bit of a clarity or bit of a mindset or awareness already helps. And then number two, what was the number two? Oh yeah, when you know or when you keep in mind why you wanted to unlearn that specific habit, specific behavior, whatever it is that you want to learn, why you want to unlearn it in the first place. Because it's not serving you. It's not serving your purpose. It's not serving what you plan for yourselves. The next new thing might also not be, but all you know is this thing that you're trying to unlearn is also not it. So why do I want to unlearn that? Let's keep that in mind and then try to use that as leverage to figure out how to unlearn the thing you want to unlearn. And I did I kind of like had a bunch. I kind of hoped I would be able to share a bunch more, probably at least three, top three things and all of those like clickbaity titles to say the least. But now that I think about what the third one would be, I really can't rake my brains out of it to figure out what that is. Huh. So I don't know. Probably I'd ask you guys, what's your unlearning habits? How do you unlearn the things that you want to unlearn? How do you get out of the things that you've been wired to do? You've been wired to think about, like you're wired a certain way. How do you get out of that certain way, right? If it's no longer something that serves you. And I guess before that question of how, do you have something that you want to get out of? Like, do you have a pattern or a behavior or something that you want to unlearn? We all have that, I think. Whether it's as simple as I want to start getting up early instead of like sleeping until noon. I want to start I now that I think about it, unlearning is also the same as like learning a new thing. I'm trying to unlearn being a perfectionist. So I'm trying to learn or make it a habit to be a bit more carefree. Yeah, I guess that goes hand in hand, right? But I think when you're trying to learn something, if you have all of those things that no longer serve you, if they're still around, lingering in your mindset, lingering in your minds, lingering in your patterns, learning a new thing will be hard. Trying to form a new habit will be hard because it's like you're already wired a certain way. So, okay, so think of it this way. Okay, my brain is finally working. Okay, so think of it this way. Think of it this way. You know how sometimes we need some paint thinners if we want to paint something an entirely new color, or else the thing will not mix properly, or the old one will bleed through, or whatever? I think of it that way. Like, if I still have all of these old habits that I want to unlearn and I'm trying to learn a new one, then I'm not going to be that successful in learning that new one if my old habits are still fully there. I'm not saying that we cannot start a new habit forming thing without fully eradicating the old one. That's at this point that's impossible, I think. You got to be superhuman to kind of like, it's not as if we're just installing and uninstalling shit in our brains, right? But like, at least heavily lessen the thing that would prevent us from learning the new thing, right? I don't know. I probably just talking way too much about it, but I kind of like think of it that way. Um, if my my baseline is still very very faulty, if I have very faulty baseline, it's not sturdy enough, it's not firm enough, then at some point I'm just going to crumble, I'm just going to crash. So how do I make it as sturdy as possible before putting up new things, I guess. So I guess to me that's the importance of why we must, okay, I don't want to say must, again I'm no expert, but like at least this is how I see things, is why it is pretty important to at least have a bit of progress in the things that you want to unlearn before trying to learn a new thing, especially when it comes to like thought patterns, mindsets, behaviors, and whatnot. So probably that's just me. At the end of the day, my disclaimer all the damn time is that I'm no expert, and this is just me talking about something that I probably feel a little too passionate about. I don't know. And in the hopes of all of these yaps and whatever, I am looking at my record button. What do you mean it's already at 21 minutes? What do you mean I've been yapping about something for 21 minutes without really knowing where this goes or whatever? But anyway, anyway. Yeah. It's just sometimes I just want to share things with the hopes that you guys might pick out something from it. Probably not apply it in the same exact way, but somehow it's going to strike some sort of idea in your head. It's going to be that starting point for you to be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, maybe I should do it. I should take a bit of what Makia said and like turn it into this thing that works for me. Because honestly, I'm that type of person also. I would see things online, I would hear stuff from friends, I would see stuff on shows, read stuff on books, and be like, you know what? This kind of like applies to me, but in this other way. So if all of this yapping, all of these thoughts sharing, and all of that, right? If somehow that gives off that spark in you, then that's more than enough for me. That's definitely more than enough for me. And if it does, like, do tell me about it. I would love to know. I would love to know if that's the case. So, yeah, until we figure out more ways to unlearn old habits. Because honestly, like there are a lot of tips already on how to learn new ones, right? How to wire yourself to think this way, sleep with this meditation thing, or like read this what's it, manifestation stuff before you sleep. All of that is really nice and good. But like, okay, one more topic. One more topic, okay? So now that I mentioned about manifestation, it's exactly that, there are a lot of like manifestation tips, manifestation statements that you can read before going to bed. But at the end of the day, if a part of you is like, no, this is not going to work, this is just, I don't think this is going to work. It's impossible. It's, what do you mean I'm just going to go read a bunch of stuff before I go to sleep? What do you mean I'm just going to believe and things will happen? How can it happen if we have all of those like blockers in our head, right? Again, I'm no expert, but that's kind of like how I see it. Not just in like manifestation or whatever, but in everything that we try to do and the new habits that we try to form. If something is there to keep on blocking it, and this something is not something that we have at the very least unlearned just a tad bit, then it's gonna be so tough. So at the end of the day, we're back to the question: how exactly do we unlearn things? I shared my two ways, right? Try to catch yourself, or try to anchor on that want, on that thought of why you want to unlearn things in the first place. And that's about it for me. If you have, what about you? If you have something that you would want to share of how you unlearn things, or how you try to like shift your mind to think of things in a different way, then I would definitely love to know. So, yeah, it's an unlearning process, I guess, for everyone. We learn, we unlearn, and we live. We learn, we unlearn, we live, and just try our best every single day and hope for the best. you know, in the things that we do, with how we think, with the people that we meet, with the kind of influence that we have in one way or another. Again, influence doesn't have to be big. Sometimes it's just as simple as this, and you're just talking whatever, and somehow that sparked some sort of something to someone. So we live and we learn is a good statement. We live, we unlearn, we learn, and we just try our best, I guess, is what I'm getting at. So until we figure things out more, until we find our answers, probably there are no answers. There are no right or wrong answers. Probably there's not even one right way to do it. But at the end of the day, we're all here to share. We're all here to learn, to unlearn, to somehow share our experiences and whatnot. So until we find what works for us, at least for us the time being, then let's see. Let's see where this journey goes. And I hope you'll continue having me in your background. You'll continue listening to these yaps that are, I'm not sure if they're making sense at this point. I'm not even sure the trajectory of this entire episode of where everything went, but I'm just like talking to you as if I'm just recording a voice note. Actually, that feels like that, honestly. So in the end, we're all just trying. We're all just trying, right? So until the next one, you guys. Until the next one, until we find our answers, until we find it in ourselves to figure out life in the best way possible. This has been your Phantom broadcaster Makeeya for the Midnight Radio, wishing you to sleep well, dream deep, and don't let the shadows get lonely. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of me just rambling on and just being your the echoes of your midnight thoughts here at the Midnight Radio. So until the next one, I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.